right in front of me. A Doberman puppy, maybe 4 or 5 months old. Black and tan, marked clean and sharp, long legs stick-thin, bones pressing through the skin. It stood wedged between two towering crates of oranges and a flower cart draped in fallen rose petals. At an age when it should have been bouncing, biting, chasing anything it could find, its eyes carried a quiet, heavy fear. It didn't bark. It didn't whine. It did only one thing, lowered itself to the ground. Its front legs folded tight, chest pressed against the cold cement, head bowed low until it almost touched the floor, eyes locked on mine. A bow, except trembling, desperate, repeated over and over, each time like a fist landing square in my chest. Around us, people kept moving, kept laughing, haggling, passing by as if it didn't exist. But to me, the sight hit like a hard slap. I stopped dead, breath snagging in my throat. It crouched even lower. The thin ears quivered. Its tiny tail went stiff as a drawn wire. And those eyes, God, those eyes, wide, glimmering not with mischief but with a silent plea. See me. My heart started hammering, each beat pushing me forward. A vendor snapped a rag toward it. The puppy flinched, its body shrinking, but it didn't run. It just stepped back half an inch, then bent down again. Steady, desperate, stubborn, as if stopping would cost it its last chance at life. No cry for help, no sound at all. Only that bowing motion, over and over, wordless, urgent, so raw it stole the air from my lungs. A child reached out a hand. The Doberman's body went rigid, legs shaking, but instead of biting, instead of bolting, it turned its head toward me. That look cut through me like a blade of ice. It wasn't begging for food. It wasn't asking for a pat. It was asking one question, whispered, but so loud I could almost hear it. Do I have permission to live? My throat closed. My heart clenched hard in my chest. All the noise of the market, knives, voices, wheels, blurred and fell away. The world faded until there was only this. A 4 or 5-month-old Doberman puppy pressed flat to the cement, the crowd indifferent. Every ounce of survival poured into the stare it pinned on me, and I knew if I turned away this moment would never let me go. It didn't stay still for long. After one last bow, the Doberman lifted its head, ears folding back, and suddenly turned. That frail body slipped through the crowd, weaving toward the narrow gap between a stack of herbs and a cart of fish on melting ice. For a moment, I froze. Then it stopped halfway down the aisle, looked back, and bowed again. Slow, deep, like an unspoken command. Follow me. I swallowed hard. My foot moved before my mind could argue. I slipped past the vegetable seller, stepping into the damp, shadowed corridor. The clamor of the market faded behind me, shrinking as if someone had twisted the dial down. The air changed. The bright tang of citrus was gone, replaced by the sour stench of old fish, the mildew of warped crates, the metallic tang of rust bleeding through water. My heart pounded, caught between dread and a pull I couldn't name. The Doberman stopped a few paces ahead, bowed again. This time, its eyes flared in the dark like a tiny signal light. Then it kept moving, paws clicking softly on the wet cement. Each tap echoed, like knuckles rapping against the walls of my own unease. A fishmonger gave me a puzzled look as I squeezed past. I didn't explain. How could I? I was following a nameless dog, because of a bow. Yet somehow I knew. It was leading me to something that mattered. The deeper I went, the less daylight reached us. Tall crates blocked the sky. The shadows thickened. The damp air grew heavy. The Doberman paused once more, bowing low, trembling. Something clamped around my chest. This wasn't just a puppy pleading for itself. It was trying to bring me to something. Something it couldn't save alone. I whispered, my voice raw. "Hey, what do you want me to see?" It didn't answer, just lifted its head for an instant, eyes shining, then bowed again. Suddenly, it darted forward, vanishing behind a wall of torn cardboard boxes. I froze for half a breath, heart hammering. My legs begged to turn back, but I couldn't. I felt as if I'd signed a silent contract. I pushed on, shoving aside a soggy sheet of cardboard, and stepped into a narrow courtyard behind the market. Light slipped through a crack overhead, casting broken reflections across puddles on the cracked concrete. The place was empty. Only damp air, the reek of rotting fish, and the steady drip of a leaking cooler. And there, right in the center, the Doberman stood, thin, shaking. Eyes locked on me. It bowed again, slow and deliberate, like a ritual. Then it shifted aside, leaving the space open. Its eyes flashed once, as if to say, "Here. Look." I stepped closer. My foot landed in a puddle, icy water soaking through my shoe. My chest tightened, because I knew something was waiting behind those warped boxes. The Doberman pressed itself against the wall, head lowering once more toward a shadowed corner. And then I understood. It wasn't asking for itself. It was leading me to what it believed mattered more than its own life. My throat went dry. Each step forward felt heavier, as if I were walking into a vow. I drew a breath, lifted my hand, and pushed the boxes aside. And I pushed the damp cardboard aside. Light slipped through the gap, spilling across a wall slick with moss and water stains. And there, in the corner where the light couldn't reach, I saw it. Another Doberman puppy. Smaller, weaker, curled in on itself like a fist of bone wrapped in skin. Its black and tan coat, once sharp, was matted dull with grime and damp. The tiny chest rose and fell, each breath dragging the whole body with it. Its eyes were closed, legs twitching faintly as if clinging to the last thread of life. I froze. The Doberman that had led me here, it hadn't begged for food, hadn't rolled over for play. It had only bowed. And now I understand. It was pleading, but not for itself. It moved to its friend's side, tail stiff, legs trembling. Then it bowed again, deeper than ever before. The whole act poured out of it, not aimed at me, but at that fragile body on the ground. It nudged with its nose, then let out a soft whimper. An urging, a desperate command. Don't give up. Something clamped around my chest. My heart pounded, sharp and painful. This wasn't a puppy asking to live. This was a soul hammering at my ribs, begging me to save another. I stepped closer, knees sinking onto the wet cement. The stench of mold and rot pressed in, but I didn't notice anymore. I saw only two beings. One Doberman trembling, bowing as if offering its whole life, and another, so frail it seemed the next breath might never come. I stretched out my hand, palm open, slow. The guiding pup didn't bark, didn't pull away. It held its bow, eyes locked on mine as if striking a silent pact. Don't betray us. If you act for both. My own voice broke loose, raw and cracked, like a confession. All right, I'm here. I'll take you both. My chest tightened as I lifted the weaker one. Light as a breath, barely more than air in my arms. Ribs sharp beneath thin fur, each weak inhale like a shutter threatening to close forever. The guide, later I would call it Piper, pressed its nose against my hand, then against its friend, sealing the vow. "You've promised." In that moment, the world vanished. No market, no footsteps, no noise. Only the three of us in a shadowed corner, standing on the edge between life and death. I held the weaker pup against my chest, its weightless body sinking into my arms. The stench of damp fur, of fear and filth, flooded into me. Its head stirred once, then pressed into my sleeve as if clinging to one last shard of warmth. Piper pressed close to my leg, trembling, eyes fixed on me. Its muzzle quivered as if urging, "Hurry, save it." Then it bowed once more, so low its belly nearly brushed the floor. I swallowed hard. It felt like I wasn't just holding a puppy. I was carrying a vow to bring them both out, or be haunted the rest of my life. My throat burned. Breath caught in my chest. I looked at Piper. It looked back. And in that gaze, I heard it clear as words. "We only have you." I cradled the fragile pup tighter, felt its paper-thin heartbeat against my chest, so faint I feared a sudden move could erase it. Piper's claws tapped against the cement as it circled me, eyes blazing. Then it bowed once more, solemn, deliberate, pressing the warning deep into me. "You've seen. Don't turn away." I drew in a breath, tightened my grip. "I promise. I'll get you both out." And just then, the frail puppy in my arms let out a faint sigh, a breath pulled from the edge of the abyss. Piper darted forward, touched its nose to my hand, then bowed one final time, holding the posture, sealing it like a brand. At that moment, I knew. My life had just turned a page. I held the weaker Doberman tight against my chest, its body light as a shadow. Its breath came so faint I had to press my ear against its ribs to know it was still alive. The whole frame trembled, legs drawn in, fur soaked in mold and dust. Piper circled me, claws ticking against the ground, eyes never leaving me, bowing once more. I stood, bolted out of the narrow yard behind the market. My heart slammed inside me, my breath clipped short. Only one thought remained. Get it out. Now. My footsteps echoed down the cramped passage, mixing with my ragged breathing. Piper ran ahead, stopping every few strides to bow low again, pressing me forward. Faster. Don't stop. My teeth clenched. I tightened my grip on the fragile life in my arms. Then the light of the market struck me, blinding. Noise returned all at once, vendors shouting, laughter spilling, carts rattling. But in my arms, something was slipping away, and the chaos of the crowd felt cruel. I raised a hand, waving frantically at a taxi. A yellow car slowed. I ran toward it, hope sparking in my chest. The driver saw the trembling puppy cradled in my arms, frowned, and shook his head. No animals. The door slammed shut. The car sped off, dust rising in its wake. My heart dropped. Piper barked, sharp and desperate, the sound cutting through the street and startling strangers. Then it bowed hard against the pavement, claws drumming, eyes burning into mine. A demand. Don't freeze. Keep moving. I sucked in air, flagged down another car. A white sedan pulled to a stop. Relief surged as I reached for the handle. But the driver glanced once, shook his head, and drove away without a word. The breath in my arms faltered. The tiny body jerked weakly. Each exhale was a frayed thread about to snap. My chest collapsed. I sank to my knees, whispering through a tight throat. "Don't leave me. Please, don't leave me." Piper rushed close, pressing against me, nudging my hand with its nose before bowing again. It wasn't begging, it was commanding. "Stand up. Keep going." I tightened my hold, rose hard to my feet, eyes darting like a man lost. Faces passed, blank, indifferent. A few glanced, then turned away. No one stopped. No one asked. The world spun forward while a small life unraveled in my arms. Then I saw it, an old delivery truck idling by the curb. The driver sat with a cigarette pinched between his fingers. I stumbled toward him, voice breaking apart. "Please. It's dying. Can you take me?" He looked down, eyes narrowing. My heart counted the seconds like a clock ticking toward 0. Piper pressed against my leg, growling low, eyes blazing. Then it flattened itself fully, bowing so deeply its belly brushed the ground, forcing the man to see. For a moment, silence stretched tight as a string. Then he exhaled, stubbed out the cigarette, and swung the door open. "Get in. Quick." My chest erupted with relief. I climbed inside, clutching the fragile body against me. Piper leapt up after, pressing close at my feet, eyes locked on its friend. The truck rumbled, lurched forward into the street. The city outside blurred past. I pressed my face against the muzzle of the dying pup, catching the faint rhythm of breath, thin as paper. Piper bowed once more, this time not asking, but warning. Don't let go. Don't give up. And in that moment, I realized this fight wasn't just about saving a dog. It was a trial for me, whether I dared to keep a promise I'd never spoken aloud. The truck jolted over potholes, the smell of exhaust mixing with sweat and dust. I held the weaker Doberman tight against my chest, pressing my cheek to its muzzle to feel each breath. The warmth was fading, thinning like smoke dissolving in the air. Piper sat pressed against my leg, eyes fixed on the small body, letting out low whimpers, bowing again and again, as if repeating one command: "Don't let it slip away." When the truck stopped outside my small apartment, my heart nearly fell out of my chest. I jumped down, clutching the trembling life like a dying flame. Piper leapt after me, walking stiff at my heel, each step tense. Inside, the familiar room suddenly felt too silent. I spread an old blanket on the floor and set the fragile puppy down. It curled in on itself, shivering, breathing fast, eyes half shut as if sinking deeper. I dropped to my knees, hands trembling as I unscrewed a water bottle. Dipping my fingers in, I touched the droplets to its lips. For a moment, just a moment, its tongue flicked, swallowing the water. My heart slammed. Piper let out a soft bark, bowing low, its eyes flashing with a fragile hope. But the small pup sagged again, breath turning to a thin rasp. I dug through the cabinet, found an old medicine dropper. Shaking, I dripped water into its mouth. The first drop spilled out. The second swallowed. My throat tightened. I whispered, "That's it. Please, just hold on a little longer." That night stretched like a century. I sat on the floor, one hand on the dropper, the other pressed to its chest to feel the tiny heart still beating. Piper never slept. It paced the room, whimpering softly, then bowed beside me like a sentry sworn to stay at its post. Around 2 a.m., the fragile pup let out a faint cry and convulsed. Panic ripped through me. My hands shook violently as I pressed my ear to its chest. The heartbeat was so faint it felt gone. Silent tears burned my eyes as I hissed, "No! Don't give up!" Piper lunged forward, touching its nose to the little body, barking into the still room, then bowing deeply. That bow wasn't a plea. It was an order, a desperate command aimed straight at my heart. Don't let it go. I was out of strength. Water drops weren't enough. I needed more. Machines, medicine, a doctor. A real chance. Before dawn, I wrapped the pup in a thick towel, held it to my chest, and ran down the stairs like a man possessed. Piper bolted alongside, its claws clattering on the concrete like a drumbeat of war. I waved frantically at the first taxi I saw. The driver glanced, shook his head, and hit the gas. I shouted, "Please!" It's dying. No one stopped. The world outside was too cold. Finally, a young driver rolled down his window, frowning. I lifted the limp body higher, eyes full of water. "Please. It won't survive the night without a doctor." A pause. Then he swung the door open, voice urgent. "Get in!" Quick. I climbed in, Piper jumping after me, pressing close at my feet. The car tore into the dark, streetlights slicing past like blades. I pressed my face to the puppy, feeling its breath flicker like a candle in the wind. When we reached the veterinary clinic, the smell of disinfectant hit me. A doctor rushed out, eyes scanning, voice sharp. "It's critical. Bring it in now." I followed, but they stopped me at the ER door. Piper tried to push through but was held back too. It turned, eyes wet, and bowed, deep, body flattened to the white tile. Not a plea. A desperate command. "Stay. Don't leave it." I leaned against the wall, hands shaking. The monitor beeped like a clock counting down. The doctor barked orders. Oxygen tube, IV drip, tiny chest compressed under practiced hands. I stood frozen, my heart hanging by a thread. And then, the monitor let out a long, piercing tone. I collapsed, cold flooding my body. Piper let out a howl that tore the room apart, then bowed again, holding the pose as if trying to hold back death with its trembling frame. In that moment, I thought, we've lost it. The monitor's flat tone cut through me like a blade across the chest. I stood frozen, gripping the edge of the chair until my knuckles split. Piper howled, a sound that split the sterile white room in two, then dropped flat to the tile, body trembling violently. The doctor lunged for the ventilator, injected meds, his hands moving fast, precise. Seconds stretched into eternity. I held my breath, afraid even to blink. And then, the monitor flickered. A tiny blip, another, then a breath, thin but unmistakable. Relief slammed into me so hard my knees buckled. Piper leapt up, barked once, spinning in a tight circle before pressing its nose to the glass. Its eyes lit like fire, tail quivering as if it couldn't believe what it saw. The doctor turned, voice low, firm. "He's stable for now, but still very weak. Every minute counts." I nodded hard, tears streaming unchecked. I pressed my palm to the glass, as if I could push strength through it into the fragile frame lying beneath the harsh light. A nurse held the door open. I stepped inside slowly, afraid my footsteps alone might shatter the fragile heartbeat. Piper was allowed in too. It didn't hesitate, rushed straight to its friend, bowing low, deeper than I had ever seen. It held the pose so long I thought it might never rise again. I knelt beside them, trembling, and laid my hand on the tiny chest. One beat, two, weak but real. I whispered, "You're not just surviving. You're a fighter." In that moment, I knew I had to name them. Piper, the one who led me here with endless bows. And this fragile survivor, this soul who had clawed back breath from the abyss, he needed a name that was a promise. I whispered it. "You're Finn?" The sound hung in the air. Piper lifted its head, eyes blazing, tail lashing like approval. Finn stirred, eyes fluttering open. And then, like a miracle, his tongue brushed my finger. A touch so faint, yet it shattered me. Tears burst free. I bent low, whispering into his fur. "Finn, You're no longer nameless. You have a name. You have me." That night, I stayed on the floor with both of them. Piper never left Finn's side. It pressed its chin against his back, bowing now and then as if to remind him, "Don't drift. Don't give in." Finn breathed more evenly, but every breath was still a battle. I filled the dropper, let the water fall into his mouth. Each swallow, faint as it was, sent my heart racing like fireworks. Piper leaned close, watching, then licked Finn's face as if urging, "Keep going, keep going." By morning, the first rays of light slipped through the clinic window, casting gold across the sterile floor. Finn stirred. A soft whimper escaped, and slowly, trembling, he lifted his head. I held my breath. Piper shot up, barked, then dropped flat in front of Finn, body pressed low in a bow. A rallying cry. A ritual of honor. Finn wavered, legs trembling. He pushed himself up. One tiny step, then he collapsed. I lunged, but Piper was faster, sliding beside him, pressing its body against Finn's to keep him steady. Finn swayed, then, by some miracle, took another step. I broke apart, pulling both of them against me. Piper pressed into my side. Finn buried his face in my chest. 3 lives bound together, trembling, but alive. A vow sealed in flesh and breath. I whispered, my voice shaking, "You've saved me more than I've saved you." Morning light washed over us, turning the white room into something sacred. Finn, frail but standing. Piper, steadfast as flame. And me, someone who once went to the market for tomatoes and bread, now witness to a miracle. The day Finn was discharged, I knew I would never forget. The doctor stepped out, his voice calm but firm. "He's strong enough to go home, but he needs close watch." "This is only the beginning." I nodded, my throat tight. Piper barked loudly, circling my legs, ears high, tail whipping like a victory flag. When the nurse carried Finn out, wrapped in a soft blanket, Piper leapt up, pressed her nose to him, sniffing every inch as if to test the truth. "He's alive." We stepped out of the clinic. The California sun struck down, erasing the antiseptic that clung to my shirt. I cradled Finn against my chest. Piper walked beside me, head high, proud. And in that instant, I realized we were no longer 3 strangers. We were a family. In the days that followed, my once lifeless apartment filled with breath and sound. Finn was still fragile, each step slow but stronger with every sunrise. Piper never left him. Each time Finn tried to stand, Piper bowed low, eyes blazing, urging him, "Up! You can do this!" And somehow, Finn always listened. One morning, coffee in hand, I watched something that broke me open. Finn staggered out from his blanket, legs trembling. Piper moved close, dropped into a deep bow before him, eyes locked. Finn looked back, as if receiving the signal. He pushed, wobbled forward. Piper pressed shoulder to shoulder, steadying him. Finn swayed, then took another step. I collapsed into a chair, coffee shaking in my hand, tears streaming. 2 Doberman pups, one who had nearly died, one who had bowed 100 times to save him, now walking together. Not perfect steps, but steps of life. Word spread fast. Neighbors came, bringing food, blankets. A boy delivered a drawing, Piper bowing beside Finn, the words scrawled beneath, "Loyalty saves." I taped it to my fridge. At night, I often sat watching them sleep. Finn nestled into Piper's neck, breathing softly, as if afraid to lose the dream. Piper, even in sleep, legs twitching as if still bowing, its instinct of devotion never resting. Once, in the dark, I whispered, "Piper, Finn, you've saved me more than I saved you." And it was true. I had lived alone, cut off, my world nothing but four silent walls. But from the moment I stepped into that market in Santa Monica, from the second I saw a bow so desperate it split my chest, everything changed. I was no longer living only for myself. Finn grew stronger. The first time he managed to run a few steps, Piper shot after him, barking loudly, bowing in the middle of the yard like a cheer for victory. I laughed out loud, a sound I thought had left me years ago. Neighbors paused to watch us, smiling. One afternoon, I took them both to the Santa Monica shore. Waves rolled, wind swept, and sunlight stretched across the water. Finn ran slow but free, sand clinging to his paws. Piper circled him, bowing again and again, as if carving into the air a promise. "I'll always be here, in every step you take." I stood still, heart swelling. I thought of the market, the indifferent crowd, the desperate bow. If I had walked away that day, Finn would be gone, Piper perhaps too, and I would still be a man alone in a cold world. But no. Now I had two pairs of eyes always watching me, two hearts beating beside mine, two lives reminding me of one truth: dogs never betray. And maybe that's why human betrayal cuts them so deep. I knew Piper and Finn's story wasn't just mine. It was a warning for anyone who had ever turned away from a fragile life. Don't. Because a single bow, a single look, can change not only their fate, but yours. I share this story not for thanks, but to spread a truth. Out there, other Pipers and Finns are still bowing unseen in the crowd. All they need is one person to stop. Just one. If you ever feel that call, whether in a bow, a trembling gaze, or a breath slipping thin, please don't turn away, because they will never turn away from you. At night, I close my door and watch Piper and Finn curled together on the blanket. Piper whimpers, bowing even in dreams. Finn presses against him, breathing steady. I smile, close my eyes, and know I'm no longer alone. And tomorrow, at dawn, the three of us will step into a new world together. A world where loyalty needs no words, only a bow to say everything. Maybe you're sitting somewhere quiet, watching this like a distant film, but I want you to know, out there, in crowded markets and dark alleys, other Pipers and Finns still wait, small, loyal souls, bowing, begging to be seen. I was lucky enough to stop, and that single decision, that fleeting moment, has changed my life forever. If this story touches you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, so more people know that dogs never betray. They only need one chance to be loved. Tell me in the comments, have you ever saved a small life? What became of them? I want to hear your story, because that's how we extend this chain of hope. And if you believe these little ones deserve a chance to live, subscribe. Each share, each follow, isn't just fueling a story. It's one step closer to bringing the forgotten home. Be part of our family. Be the voice for the voiceless. And together, we'll keep writing stories where loyalty never dies.